I'll be in order. We'll start the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. We've got everyone here with a couple of special guests of Matt online and Scott here, Eric online. So we have a quorum, we're ready to rock.
Yeah.
First agenda item, minutes. It was distributed, it's 8/20/24. People have a chance to read them. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. There's a motion second. Any changes, modifications? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 6, the fiscal year 24 surplus recommendations, discussion of possible action. These we discussed at our last meeting to a large degree. The Board of Selectmen then met a week ago, Tuesday, and approved these and recommended them for our action. Our action after tonight then goes to town meeting. So I'd like to introduce a couple of quick comments, and then my suggestion is, unless anybody wants to kind of go item by item, we'll just kind of run down the 15 items that have been recommended, see if there's any additional discussion, and then we have 14 motions we have to pass. So that will be the process. So my opening comments are, one, I think that I very much appreciate the Board of Selectmen's work on this, and I think there's a wide range of areas in town that are going to be able to benefit from the surplus allocations. I'm delighted to see that we're starting a coastal resilience fund to be able to prepare ourselves, particularly as we now have a couple of major studies underway. I'm glad to see we've got the staffing support in there for the Housing Task Force and the Development Authority, as well as an allocation for assistance, grant writing assistance, whether that's one person or a group of people. A couple of things that were mentioned at the last meeting that are not in here for only the reason that they are not ready for prime time. One is the Goodwin School playground, which still needs to go through the Board of Education and get their approval, and actually design and approval before we can act on it, as well as the Chocolate Beach Tide Gate. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. Carl had mentioned the fact that there was some work being done on it to even determine the ownership. And so therefore, how do we want to move that forward? One thing that I'll take some responsibility for is when we were discussing the main budget, we had a conversation around trees, and at that time, we said, well, what we'll do is we'll take $22,000 out of the surplus to set up the tree fund in order for us to become a tree city, but it didn't go in. I forgot to mention it, and so it's something that we can put into the budget going forward. So I haven't heard from anybody relative to the tree, so it's perhaps less of an issue now than it was in March when we were discussing it. But those are my opening comments. Does anybody else have any comments before we just run through the items? Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take each item, say what it is, and then we won't get into any discussion on it unless somebody wants to discuss it. So number one is moving 212,000 to the town budget reserve to allow that to be remain at 17%. Second one, 500,000 for purpose of repairing Beaver Dam Trail. I think is it Beaver Trail Dam, actually. And I believe that will, we discussed that, and I think that this is a portion of what the ultimate costs are going to be. Item number 3, 350,000 for the purpose of repairing Chalkers Mill Pond Dam. And we still need to know exactly what the final cost is, but we're making some preliminary money, setting some preliminary money aside for that. Number 4, setting aside $1 million for the purpose of the Acton Public Library renovation. I have a couple of comments on that, but I'll open it up to anybody else before I comment. I'm hearing no other comments. My comments are, this town, and Scott, I'm glad you're here because I hope that you will attest to this. There are lots of people in this town that are anxious to help out and donate where they can. You did a great job in raising the money for the lights. The library has a need for about $700,000, $800,000 in fundraising in order to meet the private money needed against the state match, because they already have the Tucker Fund at about 1.3. So they're just hired a fundraiser. They're moving forward with their fundraising. My understanding from a couple of different conversations is there are some people who are stepping up already, and I hope that there will be more. And this $1 million that's being proposed here, in my mind, somewhat caps the opportunity of fundraising. That, you know, if they went to 800,000 or 900,000, you know, it's easier to fundraise when there's a need rather than say, oh, we hit the 700,000, we don't need it anymore. So what I'm recommending is, we all know that we are going to stand behind this renovation. We have been talking about it for a couple of years. I would recommend that we, instead of allocating $1 million, we allocate $500,000 tonight for this purpose. We allow the Acton Public Library's fundraising effort to go forward. Any money we don't allocate tonight will simply fall to capital non-recurring. And if at the appropriate time, we're in a position where there is additional money needed, we can just pull the money out of capital non-recurring and make that happen. But I hope that, there's a lot of people with means in this town, a lot of people who care about this town, and I hope that the fundraiser is able to exceed their goals in that regard. And this will give them the opportunity.
So second on
Not yet. We'll move, when we move all the items, we'll discuss it at that point. I'm just giving you the thought. So that would be a modification on that. Okay? Any other discussion there? Hearing none. Set aside 150,000 for.
I just have one question. Yep. 500, the second half of the 500,000, couldn't we put that on a fund earmarked specifically for funding the library in case of need, instead of putting it into the capital non-recurring?
I turn to my process person. What would be?
Well, you can certainly do that. I mean, we have like $3 million in capital non-recurring right now before we.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and so if you think that the Board of Finance will change their mind when the second vote comes, then you might want to earmark it. But I think it's probably safe to say that they wouldn't change their mind. So you could do it either way. You can do it either way. It's fine.
The second question I would have is, if in fact the library doesn't use $1 million, why wouldn't we take the balance open and put that in the resiliency fund, earmark it specifically for that, increasing it from 100,000 to whatever it is, another 100,000, whatever's left over?
Well, when you have funds in capital non-recurring, that is their purpose. They are unnamed projects. And so then you can really wait till the dust settles and then say, all right, we need this much for the library, and how about this much for the resiliency plan, instead of, that gets a little cumbersome if you start naming things and switching them around after the fact. Because the auditors are gonna wanna know where we're putting all these funds, and it's best to be just very distinct with the amount of money that we're setting aside. If you earmark it, it's the same, if you say 500,000 for the library and earmark of 500,000 for the library, I'm gonna earmark $1 million.
Right.
Same, I'm gonna do the same thing that the thing
Okay.
says.
All right.
So, I think it would be cleaner if you come back and ask for what you wanna do in the future.
Okay. We'll make a note of that. I'll come back.
That's fine.
Right, and that's the beauty of it. We sit and manage the capital non-recurring fund. So if there's a run on capital non-recurring, we're all here knowing that we need to have at least a balance of 500,000 just in case, so that we're in that position.
Oh, Carl's on the phone.
Yeah, let's go.
Welcome, Carl.
It's in the car.
Okay,
Do you want to bring them up to date on that one?
okay, so we were at number 5. Set aside 150,000 for grant, this is to do the engineering work on various grant-related projects. Any questions on that? Number 6, surplus funds for the purpose of constructing sidewalks, recommendation for 200,000 there. Number 7, 50,000 for the purpose of contracting a grant writer. I think in that case, it's really contracting for grant assistance. It doesn't necessarily need to be one writer, it could be as appropriate. 8, setting aside 175,000 for the purpose of hiring outside consultant for housing task force, Angelo Barron Way. 9, $100,000 for coastal resiliency projects, as we discussed. 10, 275,000 transfer to off budget for paving. 11, 63,500 off budget for public work vehicle purchase to put us on plan to be able to purchase the next flip of fleet.
Bruce, that's police vehicle, not public works.
Did I say public works?
Yes.
Wow, and I read police, that's strange. Okay, police. 12, 284,511 for the Board of Ed sinking fund to replace the spring track replacement. 13, set aside 872,000 for the Board of Ed for HVAC. 12 and 13 are funding that came, excess funding that came from the Board of Ed, so we're reinvesting it in the Board of Ed projects. 14, I think we can be clear about what we want to do here. Setting aside $20,000. This is talking about either from capital non-recurring or fiscal year 24 surplus. Why do we do either or? Why don't we just do one? Does it matter
It's
to
your
you?
choice, you can pick.
Okay.
Yeah, you can pick it's again, just how you want to do it. It's gonna go into the capital non-recurring, and then if you take it out of the capital non-recurring, it's gonna
Right.
just make a little trip through the capital non-recurring.
Right, so for clarity purpose, let's just do fiscal 24 surplus. Anybody have any concerns with that? Nope. And then we'll set aside the balance. The balance at this point would be, well, so that 20,000 would come out off before 13.
I think I assumed the 20,000 would be coming out of the surplus.
Okay.
I think that you would choose that.
So then that surplus number would be 913,215 minus the 212 that we have, or it's already, the
Yeah.
212 has been taken out.
It's gonna be, yeah.
Okay, so I didn't hear any questions with that. Why don't we just run through each of the items? We need to have a separate motion and move these to town meeting. George?
Just a question, perhaps more a comment for the budget season that's be coming up this fall. And so I think this is, during this past year, during the off meetings, we've had opportunities to talk about a particular item on a great length, I think, and I really appreciate it. And I was wondering whether we could schedule a meeting to talk about sidewalks and roads in this town, right? Mostly public work, it's just, I mean, there are two items, in this 14, the surplus that's going towards sidewalks and roads. It seems like a very trivial amount relative to what I think sidewalks and roads cost. I'm just trying to figure out whether we're making it then to the.
So the sidewalks, we've been putting aside about $250,000 a year, and then working on a project, you know, to get the sidewalks done, ultimately going around the whole town as needed, year after year after year. And the same thing with the paving. The Department of Public Works typically spends $500,000 a year and paves a set amount of roads. And this year, because they were down 2 men, they weren't able to get everything that they wanted to do done. And so we didn't want to see that money just slip to the bottom line. We wanted to kind of keep it out there so that we can continue on with our paving plan, because there's 33 miles of roads in Old Saybrook, and they keep going every single year. So it is a strategy in and of itself. Sidewalks until they're completed, roads until they need to be redone, you know.
And I suspect the sidewalk, once it's completed, it's gonna come right back around again.
Exactly, yes.
To repair, right? So.
Correct, yes, so.
And also, I think, we have, built a lot of sidewalks in town based on state funds, not only just the town funds, so that, this is just with that allocations. Okay, any other questions? We will run through these as quickly as we can. Number 1, to appropriate $500,000 fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of repairing Beaver Dam Trail, and to transfer these monies to fund 2848 Beaver Dam Culvert. Further, move this motion to town meeting. Do I have, I'll make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's automatic, it drops down. The 212.
Correct. We don't do anything. It will be left over.
Number, thank you, Eric. Number 2, to appropriate 350,000 fiscal year surplus, fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of repairing Chalkers Mill Pond Dam. Further, remove this motion at town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any- 3, this is where the change, to appropriate 500,000 of fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of providing funds toward renovating active public library. Further, to move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second?
I seconded with a question. Didn't,
Huh?
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But that's okay. You can still ask a question during discussion. We're in discussion.
Shouldn't we outline 500 and 500 in that motion?
No, because the other 500 just falls to the, will fall in automatically. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 4, to appropriate 150,000 fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of providing funds for grant-related engineering, and to transfer the monies to fund number 2919, grant-related projects. Further, move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second? Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Number 5, to appropriate 200,000 fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of repairing sidewalks, and to transfer the monies to off-budget fund 3019 sidewalk construction. Further, to move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6, to appropriate $50,000 of fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of contracting with grant writing assistance, I'll say.
Okay.
Further, to move this motion to a town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Bruce, can I make one comment?
We would love to hear it, Eric.
So at the last meeting, we talked a little bit about this item and talked about potentially a backlog in the engineering side of projects, especially if we get a grant writer. And if you want to be a part of this, Bruce, it might be great. Carl has agreed to meet with myself and Chris Costa. So if you want to be a part of that as well, he's going to set that up so we can talk about what kind of workload, Chef Jacobson has currently and what he could have.
Okay, thanks. I would love to be a part of it. Okay, we need to vote, right? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Number 7, to appropriate $175,000 fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of hiring one or more consultants to assist the Housing Task Force and the Mariners Way project, and to further move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Speak up. Oh, any opposed? Passes. Number 8, to appropriate $100,000 fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of resilient projects, and to transfer the monies to Fund 2921 Land Use Resilience Fund. Further move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We appreciate that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 9, to appropriate $275,000 fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of paving roads and transferring the monies to Fund 7400 Paving Fund. Further move this motion to town meeting.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Number 10, to appropriate $63,500 for the fiscal year 2024 surplus for the purpose of future purchase of police vehicles, and to transfer the monies to Fund 3033 Police Vehicle Purchase Fund. Further move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 11, to appropriate $284,511 for the fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of repairing the school track, and transfer these monies to Fund 3354 Board of Education Capital Sinking Fund. Further move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Number 12, to appropriate $872,534 for fiscal year 2024 surplus funds for the purpose of installing air conditioning at the middle school, and to transfer the monies to Fund 2303 Board of Education Air Quality HVAC. Further to move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? I just have one question. Will this $872,534 be all that's needed for that air conditioning project, do you know?
I don't believe so, but I think that we have about $500,000, and this is going to make a big dent in it. I don't have the air conditioning plans, but I think that there's grants possibly involved. So we have to get more information. I don't know if there is.
We will have Board of Ed at the next meeting, so we can talk to them about that then. Okay, let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 13, to appropriate $20,000 for a holiday lighting proposal from the capital non-recurring account 3350.
For fiscal year 25.
Say that again.
Yeah.
To appropriate up to $20,000 for the holiday lighting proposal from the fiscal year 24 surplus, and to transfer these funds to a new project entitled Holiday Lighting. Further move this motion to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And finally, to appropriate the balance of surplus funds, already accepting the $212,000, which would put us at 7% in our rainy day fund, which shall be put into the town's unassigned, the capital non-recurring fund 3350. Further to move this motion to town meeting, and just for clarification, that number is now 913,215. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That was. We'll continue to move. Carl, I know you're driving. Do you have anything that you would like to add at this point?
No, I don't. I caught the tail end here because I was following Waze to get out from where I was. So, what was item number one? The library. What did that end up being?
We're 500,000 allocated from surplus to the library, and the second 500,000 is just dropping to the bottom line of capital non-recurring.
Yep. Okay. Very good. Thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Any liaison reports? Comments from board members? Public comment. We have no one in the room, and we have 2 attendees. If either of you would like to speak, feel free to raise your hand and we will grant you that. Okay, seeing none, comments from the chair. Just happened now. So now with the surplus allocated, we have a little bit of downtime until the budget season starts, which is about 4 weeks. So what I wanted to do simply is to give you an idea of kind of upcoming meetings and give you and we've already set the schedule. We have Superintendent Drezick in at the next meeting, which is 9/17. The meeting after that is October 1st, and my suggestion is that we follow up on Brad's document that he gave us on the role and duties of the Board of Finance. George and Megan will have been with us for almost a year at that point. I've been here for almost 3 years, and then the rest of, and Eric is about the same amount of time, and then we have some old timers. So this will be good to have a discussion at that point. People will have a year of process under their belt. The document that Brad gave us was an excerpt from about a 60-page document, which I have downloaded, and I will send out to the board members, so you'll have a chance to look at the full document for that discussion. 10:15 is we will have the reports, the standard monthly reports at the 10:15 meeting. We'll have to determine whether we want to have any other activity take place there. And then the meeting following that is election night. And I look to Jerry, do we cancel for election day?
Yes, we usually do.
Okay, so let's plan on not having a meeting on election
Okay.
night, unless we all want to be here watching it together.
I'll be away.
Would be
I'll be out in
exciting.
country.
Anything else for the good in the order? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
I said 7:30, you're right.